So, I guess part of the reason why we wanted to conduct this is because I wanted to bring our customers, yours, ours, more value, being able to, like with your side with the workman's comp, general liability, those insurances that a contractor or a service provider is going to carry, what that entails and how and what a homeowner should look for when they're seeking a contractor, as well as on the homeowner side, how the policy's written for each specific customer. And I figured that we'll be able to collectively we'll be able to bring the people out there viewing this good information. Why did y'all get into insurance in the first place? Like, what drew you to the insurance industries?
Well, I know for me, it was the fact that my dad told me I needed a job, and so I had to. If I didn't get a job, I wasn't allowed to move back home. And so, 13 years later, here I am, with my own agency and that kind of thing. But really, for me, as a State Farm agent, it was finding a place that had the same values that I have, as well as kind of like a home. After my first year, I was ready to leave. I wanted to be a firefighter out in Colorado. I did kind of the forest firefighting. And that was about 6 months into the job. But once I started meeting the people and understanding what I was doing and how I was actually helping people, I realized that it was actually not a bad job, and I really enjoyed it, and that kind of sucked me in. And then I never left.
Nice.
And I ended up just building on top of it.
How long have you been in insurance?
I've been in insurance for 13 years.
13 years?
So, yeah, almost 14 at this point.
All right.
So
nice.
All with State Farm.
All with State Farm. Cool.
Variety of different things. I did a little bit of what Kris did in the commercial side, but I was underwriting. I was on the corporate side, and they moved me all over the country and those kind of things. And then I've been an agent for a little over a year now.
Okay. All right. That's the location that you're at now.
Yeah. In Greenville. Yeah. Right off Garlington Road. Yeah.
Johnson. Okay. And what brought you to insurance?
Well, first, if you'd have told me I'd be in the insurance world 5 years ago, coming out of the Army, I would have told you you're crazy.
Yeah.
That you're smoking something, and where can I find some? But no, an opportunity came up that it was beneficial for my family at the time, and didn't know if it was something that would last, but it was a good opportunity, so I took it, and it has been a great opportunity. And I think the thing I enjoy about it the most is that both with personal and commercial, real people's assets, their money and their security, their retirement, and stuff like that, and they trust you to, because they're not subject matter experts in insurance, and they're relying on you to be that.
That's right.
And it's cool to me that people can trust you with that, and it's awesome to be able to help people transfer risk from themselves to an insurance carrier and stuff like that, so they're better protected in the future if anything should happen. So I think that the consultation piece is what I like about it the most.
And as far as like, I used to do all retail work, and when we would get customers that would call us that would definitely have storm damage, and they would say, well, the insurance adjuster paid X amount of dollars for the job to be done, and my bids were typically a good bit higher because of with the evaluation of what was actually damaged, like from a tree falling on a house, or wind ripping literally an entire top of a house off. We've had a couple microbursts like that. Well, when we looked at the scope of work compared to what we had listed as a scope of work, they didn't always meet up. So I started researching the insurance industry, and how we would be able to help homeowners get basically fully taken care of. So that way, like for instance, you'll have one contractor that will sister a 2x4, like a broken rafter or something like that. They'll just slap another 2x4 on the side of it. And that's kind of where I've seen a lot of like adjusters that not necessarily they're not doing it on purpose, but because they don't understand the process of what it takes from a contractor's point of view, and they accept like the guy that just, we call him kind of like chucking a truck. So that chuck in a truck will come up and they'll slap the 2x4 on it, and they'll accept whatever's kind of thrown out there to them, and then it makes the homeowner think that they've gotten fully taken care of. But 5 years later, when the home goes up for sale, now the home inspector comes in and says, "Oh, what happened here?" So we tried to make sure that when we were doing the work, that we were fully taking care of the problem, and not reinventing it, but restructuring it as it was like a pre-loss condition. And that's kind of how we ended up getting into the insurance specifically. Why'd you choose? You kind of covered why you chose State Farm with.
Yeah, well, there's a variety of different companies, obviously,
Yep.
that I could have gone with, and those
Yeah.
kind of things. But for State Farm, it was a lot of it was the people and the values, and I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. We truly do try to take care of the customer as if they're kind of part of the family.
Yep.
And so we're always looking out for them and those kind of things. And I recognize that from day one, not just with what we did on a day-to-day basis, but the people that worked for the company.
Yep.
And it's people behind the scenes, those kind of things. That's why I stayed with State Farm and stuck with them. But the reality is we offer one of the better products on the market. So I felt that the brand was solid and strong and reputable. And then the other piece behind it is I truly believe in what I'm doing, and everyone that I work with at State Farm believes the same thing that we do. We know that we're helping people. We know that we're doing that on a day-to-day basis. And so that way, I can get up every morning and feel good about what we're doing and what we're doing to protect people.
Well, it's always nice to have a team of people that have the same set of core values.
Mm-hmm.
And you, Kris, you represent and you work with several carriers, right?
That's right.
So, so your would be the Brian Spears agency. How is that, and what kind of keeps you there?
Well, yeah. So, like you said, we represent a lot of carriers. We're an independent agency. I think the biggest thing, I'll kind of mirror what John said, is it's more of a family environment, and especially with our clients, we really focus on each one of our clients. You're not just a name in our computer, right? You're not just a phone number that pops up on the phone, right? Yeah. You're a part of our family now, and we're here to take care of you. So, but we're still a brick and mortar type operation.
Yeah.
And I think in the insurance world, there's a lot of carriers, a lot of companies that are moving more towards the give us a call, visit the website. You're not dealing with people, you're not dealing with faces. You get different people every time. So that's the biggest thing is we really focus on taking care of our folks, and it makes the job a lot easier when people know you're taking care of them. Makes you feel good.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It's definitely more fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more value to it, and like with me personally too. I value that personal relationship that I can build with somebody. Like as far as like your homeowner's insurance and policy coverage, we deal with a lot of weather events. And what should a homeowner kind of consider when they're actually looking for those things? Because I know some areas are flood zones. Some areas are prone to hurricanes, so they have different insurances for that, like on your coast and things. And then around here a lot, we actually have a lot of homes that are built in like the mountains, and they're around trees, or communities like on Lake Kiwi where I work quite often, and these communities are literally built surrounded by pine trees.
Yep. And
they're falling all the time, as opposed to like a cookie cut neighborhood where there's nothing around, and it's just kind of like neighborhoods of houses. How would you determine the best coverage for somebody coming in and using different scenarios as to where they're
Yeah, and you listed like 4 different types of houses in there that we see on a regular basis.
Yep.
And so what we're looking to do is just make sure that they've got the right coverage on the house. So typically, if a tree falls on it, we had a customer, and it wasn't pine trees. These were giant oak trees that I couldn't even wrap my arms halfway around.
Yep.
That fell in and split one house into 3 houses. And it cost $28,000 just to remove the trees off of the house. So you think about those kind of weather-related things. The house was destroyed, completely totaled.
Total loss.
And so let's just say the house is $250,000. Well, where's that extra $28,000 going to come from? Right? We've already got to rebuild the house for $250,000. Now there's that $28,000. So you got to make sure that your policy has the right coverage for that.
Yep.
And in this case, they did have the right coverage. We were able to kind of pull from different buckets and things like that. But that's the importance of not necessarily just going with the first house that you see, or the first premium that's the lowest. Because sometimes you get what you pay for. I think we were talking about that before we started.
Yeah.
Is sometimes the products that you buy, if you pay for the lowest, you're going to get the lowest on
Yeah.
that. And so it's important to make sure that you're looking at all the coverages, you're having a conversation with somebody. We've done a really good job in the insurance industry of making insurance a commodity. And I think that's actually awful. People no longer know what they get, why they get it, those kind of things.
Yep.
And so it's really important to make sure that you're going through, sitting down with somebody, having a conversation, reviewing the coverages that you have, and making sure what you have is the right coverage. I'm not everybody, and Kris was alluding to this earlier, not everybody's an insurance expert. We don't expect you guys to be.
Yeah.
That's not true. I'm not a roofing expert.
Yeah.
I know very little about roofs.
Yeah.
But the point is, I know the difference between an HO3 and an HO5 policy. The average customer,
and I have no idea what HO3 or HO5 is.
The average customer doesn't.
Yeah.
And what they see is that it's homeowners, they've got dwelling coverage, it's an HO3, but they don't see the different additional coverages that come with that. They don't see that why is it a lower cost. We've had somebody that their premium was half of what ours was, but they had way less in coverage. So it's just kind of making sure that you know what you're getting and why you're getting it.
Well, that's a common problem that we run into, is that there's several different types of policies out there, and one policy will pay for like total replacement cost.
Yep.
And then there's some policies that are what is called the actual cost value, which is the depreciated value of that specific item. And then I've even run into things like this is not covered in your policy. Your policy excludes say like hail damage on this deductible.
Right.
So some policies will say $500 or $1,000 deductible, except unless you have this certain event here, which I see a lot right now, is the hail exclusion, meaning that they're paying now 2% I think in some policies if it's a certain type of event.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't read the policy booklets when I get them. I mean, I've read it before because that was
Like the policy jacket.
Yeah, the policy. I mean, I don't know a single customer who's ever sat there and read it cover to cover.
So in that instance, he described he had a customer with a tree comes down, destroys the house. Now, homeowners got to rebuild. They've got to get all these contractors in here. What types of coverages are like, you got a tree guy, and you've got a builder, or a contractor, general contractor. What types of coverages should our customers be looking for from the contractor or the builder that's going to be tree service, all of those guys? What should they have in place in order to be able to legally do the work, as well as make sure the homeowner's covered on that in case anything happened?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question, because I would tend to think that when a contractor of any type, I mean, if you have a plumber come into your home,
Yep.
I would say the majority of people probably do not check that.
They don't check.
Make sure that that person has adequate coverage if you're coming into your home operating as a business. That they check that. So I think that's an interesting question. Now, as far as what they should have, I would always tell a commercial customer of mine to refrain from going on a job site if you do not have at least general liability or workers' compensation. Now, when I am consulting a commercial client or commercial prospect, I always recommend at least $1 million general liability to $1 million aggregate, and on top of that, either an excess liability policy or a commercial umbrella. Okay. And then obviously workers' compensation.
Yep.
At a minimum.
Yep.
Absolutely at a minimum. Because I certainly don't want someone coming on my property without adequate coverage. And I'll give you an example why. You're a roofer.
Yep.
You've got a roofer. Let's say they don't have coverage. They don't have general liability coverage. Well, they're on top of a roof, and a hammer falls off the roof and hits the client on top of the head.
Yep.
Right, and does some serious damage. I mean, those framing hammers are
they're
no
heavy.
joke.
Yeah, exactly. It could crack a skull.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you don't have general liability. That's an accident, right?
Yeah.
You probably didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
That general liability policy, that $1 million can go away really quickly, even if you do have a policy. So it's very important coverage to have the general liability, and obviously the work comp is important as well, especially if you have employees. And that's for contractors and subcontractors. So when you have a general contractor, or even yourself, if you subcontract work, it is paramount that you make sure that your subcontractors are covered. Because I think what's something that's important as well is as a homeowner, if you are hiring a contractor to come in and do work, it's important to first off have some kind of proof, certificate, deck pages, what have you, that there's policies in force, and to be added as an additional insured on that policy. So if something were to happen, you are covered on that policy as the client. And you can make a claim on that policy. Not to say if you're not an additional insured, you cannot make a claim, but that just ensures that there's coverage in place. And if that policy were to run out or cancel for non-payment or what have you, you're going to be notified of that.
Exactly. And that is, that actually is a good point right there. Is that when we list somebody as an additionally insured, or when we ask one of our subs to list us as an additionally insured, that lets me know that they still have coverage.
That's good. I like this side of my face. So
there's a couple bottles of water there for y'all.
Thank you.
Brandon, me and Alex are gonna go grab some lunch.
Okay.
You need me to pick you anything up?
This light. No.
Sean's gonna watch this video and critique all our postures.
I know. I wonder one with him.
I thought he might just say
Monday.
something about his blue striped socks.
Yeah, I should have worn better socks.
No. I'm joking with you. I like. That's kind of
Well, if I knew we were going Argyle, I would have.
That's how I roll.
Oh, I thought there was a door on this one.
Alright, cool. I used to be like the most boring sock guy, and then like this is a step up for me. And we've already got to rebuild the house for $250,000. Now there's that $28,000. So you got to make sure that your policy has the right coverage for that. And in this case, they did have the right coverage. We were able to kind of pull from different buckets and things like that. But that's the importance of not necessarily just going with the first house that you see, or the first premium that's the lowest. Because sometimes you get what you pay for. I think we were talking about that before we started. Is sometimes the products that you buy, if you pay for the lowest, you're going to get the lowest on that. And so it's important to make sure that you're looking at all the coverages, you're having a conversation with somebody. We've done a really good job in the insurance industry of making insurance a commodity. And I think that's actually awful. But people no longer know what they get, why they get it, those kind of things. And so it's really important to make sure that you're going through, sitting down with somebody, having a conversation, reviewing the coverages that you have, and making sure what you have is the right coverage. You know, I'm not everybody, and Kris was alluding to this earlier, not everybody's an insurance expert. We don't expect you guys to be. That's not true. I'm not a roofing expert. I know very little about roofs. But the point is, you know, I know the difference between an HO3 and an HO5 policy.
And I have no idea what HO3 or HO5 is.
The average customer does it. And what they see is that it's homeowners, they've got dwelling coverage, it's an HO3, but they don't see the different additional coverages that come with that. They don't see that why is it a lower cost. I just had somebody that their premium was, half of what ours was, but they had way less in coverage. So it's just kind of making sure that you know what you're getting and why you're getting it.
Well, that's a common problem that we run into, is that there's several different types of policies out there, and one policy will pay for like total replacement cost,
Yep.
and then there's some policies that are what is called actual cost value, which is the depreciated value of that specific item. And then I've even run into things like, this is not covered in your policy. Your policy excludes, say like hail damage on this deductible.
Right.
So, some policies will say $500 or $1,000 deductible, except unless you have this certain event here, which I see a lot right now, is the hail exclusion, meaning that they're, paying now, 2%, I think, in some policies if it's a certain type of event.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't read the policy booklets when I get them. I mean, I've read it before because
Like the policy jacket.
yeah, the policy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know a single customer who's ever sat there and read it cover to cover.
Yeah.
Except your attorneys.
Yeah, the attorney, the engineer.
Yeah,
those ones
it's the
do,
odd
but-
exception.
Yeah, public adjusters. Yeah. So in that instance, he described he had a customer with a tree comes down, destroys the house. Now, homeowners got to rebuild. They've got to get all these contractors in here. What types of coverages are like, you got a tree guy, and you've got a builder, or a contractor, general contractor. What types of coverages should our customers be looking for from the contractor or the builder that's going to be, tree service, all of those guys? What should they have in place in order to be able to legally do the work, as well as make sure the homeowner's covered on that in case anything happened?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question, because
to your work, those kind of things. On the homeowner's side, what we're looking at is, and it goes back to kind of what almost similar to, what keeps you up at night. Our thing is, hey, we focus on what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Not just with your home, that sort of stuff. What are you trying to accomplish with your life? And if something were to happen to your home, what kind of financial hardship would that cause to you being able to meet your goals? And something this important and this valuable in your life, you want to make sure that you take the time to sit down and understand the coverages that you have. And so that's what we kind of walk through, is we'll go through that same thing. You also got to think too, in today's day and age, construction costs, right? Lumber is at the highest it's ever been.
Yeah.
And so are you sure that the policy that you have covers for that additional expense, right? So when you took that policy out 10, 15, 20 years ago when you bought the house, lumber wasn't at that price. Construction materials have increased. So are you making sure that your policies stand up with that? And that's why it's important to have somebody that can keep an eye on that. You can have those discussions. We use a tool that actually uses modern construction costs that go into it. It's updated quarterly for us.
Yep.
The biggest thing we get, and I'm sure you get it all the time, Chris, when you're doing property coverage, is people want to look at, oh, I paid this much for my house. This is how much I want to insure it for.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you could buy a $300,000 house, and it maybe cost to build brand new, right? Like we were talking earlier about, these companies buy, nails by the train load.
Yeah.
They can put up these houses at a much lower cost and sell them at a little bit lower of a cost than what it would actually cost to rebuild. So if a fire hits your home, a tornado, anything like that, they're not building a brand new whole neighborhood again. They're building one house.
Yeah.
And you're not getting that builder, those big builders, national builders, they're not coming in to build one house. They're only building neighborhoods.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you're going to have to get a separate contractor, those kind of things, and costs are going to increase.
Cost. Yep.
And so making sure that when we look at the value of the home, we're looking at what is the cost to rebuild it. Not when you're doing the new home, it costs significantly more. So it's making sure you sit down, go through that, and make sure all the features of your home are accounted for, and you really know what you're getting and why you're getting it. And make sure that you've got some additional buffers in there as well.
Yeah.
So.
That is a good point when you're buying your insurance, to plan for the future because of inflation. inflation of costs, the value of land and and homes, dwellings rise, are always on a steady increase. They're usually never on a decline. So if you're planning on being in your house for 10 years, you want to know what the market growth is going to be for 10 years and then insure your property for that specifically. Or more than what it was valued at, like he was saying, John was saying, is that when a builder does come in and build 100 homes, it's a lot different of a cost than if one builder comes in and has to build one home. What is the mission at Brian Spears? Like what's y'all's mission to your customers?
Well, the biggest thing, and like I mentioned before, is consulting. And I said it previously, let's make sure that first you have the coverage you think you have.
Yep.
Especially if a new client's coming in with a copy of their policy. Let's make sure you have what you think you have, and then let's make sure that covers the exposures that you have. Because if not, we need to make adjustments. So I think the biggest thing is being a consultant first. I'll never have somebody come into my office with a policy that is good for them at a decent price.
Yep.
And try to make them move to make the sale. I will never do that. Just because it puts them it can put them in a rough position. Yeah. I'll be the first one to tell you, hey, you got a good policy. Yeah. You might want to stay where you're at, because I don't know that I can beat it for what you have. So that's the biggest thing, being honest with people.
Yeah.
And really just making sure you're taking care of the person. It's really just taking care of people and being honest about it. Because people appreciate that, and
that brings a value in itself.
So our main thing and what we focus on at John Simmons State Farm is we really focus on making sure you have the right coverages for you. We talked about a little earlier about we're trying to find what's important to you, trying to get to know you as a customer, trying to find out what your goals are, so that we can make sure that we're protecting those and that nothing outside of the worst, when the worst happens, that you're taken care of. And so we really pride ourselves in making sure that we're taking care of our customers where we know them, and then that they walk out our door, that they know exactly what coverages they're getting, and not just what coverages, but why they're getting them and what the purpose behind it is.
Yeah. Compared to working with a local agent that you can rely on, and that you can call. Yeah, you can call that person. They're going to be, they're going to do their work and their due diligence for you, rather than you're going to be sitting on hold for 2 hours to find, if you have any kind of an issue. You're going to be sitting there on hold. You don't know the person you're talking to. The other end is individual agents, where if I have a claim, I'm going to call my agent, and they're going to know exactly everything about me, everything about my business already. They've already done their due diligence, and they're gonna, now when it goes to making that claim, they're gonna fight for me on that side of it, rather than me trying to handle it on my own and not understanding what an HO3 is, and and like, okay, well, what do I do here? I'm just relying on whatever they send out, and I'm taking their word for it. So I was talking with my brother the other day when I was kind of coming up with questions for this. And I said, well, I ran through an entire scenario, and it was the exact same case. It was like, as I see a lot of times with people, I said, well, what if you had a weather event, this happened, and the insurance company, the insurance adjuster comes out and they say, hey, here's $7,000 for your to do your work. And I said, are you gonna get bids? Are you gonna call one person out? His answer was, I'm gonna go get a couple of estimates, and then see whoever comes in best at the price, and whoever kind of gives me the most value for what they're charging. So it's pretty, that he's the kind of guy I would want to work with the fact that he wants to know what value the contractor's providing. But his other side, I said, well, what if the one estimate was $15,000 and the other estimate was like a few hundred, give or take, over I explained to him that, you know, without having somebody come in and explain the value that they're giving back to you. So I said I would take a $7,000 tree claim, and I may be able to, you know, to fully, you know, take care of you because you never, the process and documentation. I said when a tree hits a house, it racks it. It does all sorts of stuff to drywall. It does stuff to trim. And if I came in and I told you the only thing you're gonna actually have out of pocket is your deductible, but we built the value inside of taking care of the problem, and now my estimate's at $38,000 rather than $7,000. But you know, we want to work with the clients that are actually interested in having that value, knowing that whoever does their work is going to go through with a fine-tooth comb and figure out all the details, so that way they can take care of the problem the correct way, and guarantee or foresee the problem that you're going to have, being proactive about it. Advantage of
15 minutes, you can save 15% or more.
That's right.
I
Yeah,
can tell you to do a good consult takes more than 15 minutes.
that's right. I actually put the question out to my online following, and I got a couple of questions that that some of the audience kind of wanted to know. Will an insurance company cover damages, personal or dwelling damages, found on the initial report, or not found on the initial report, but later during the repair? So,
That's a good question.
so with, and I'll let you guys answer first, and then I'll put my take on it. So if a tree, you know, falls on a house, or, you know, wind blows shingles off or whatever, and the adjuster comes out and they say, okay, well, this is what we see, but especially right now during COVID, there's a lot of adjusters that are not entering homes. So they replace the roof. What about the damages? Say we didn't notice that there was any kind of leaking in the ceiling, or, you know, staining of like water stains. What happens after, you know, the adjuster comes out and says, we're going to take care of your roof, but we don't see anything else, and then the contractor comes in and he or, you know, the hospital comes in and basically they say, well, this is what was really going on with the entire situation.
Yeah, and we see it all the time.
Yep.
To be honest with you, and so I'll give you an easy example. I think that it's not necessarily a home, but it's for a car.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you get somebody that gets into a car accident, right? All you can see from the outside is, you know, a couple of dents, scratches, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy, he was driving down the road and a tire came off of another car and hit the hood of his car and just bounced up, and thought it was a big dent in the hood and kind of the side of the car. Turns out that the car ended up being totaled because the tire bent the frame and those kind of things. The adjuster came out and just said, we need to replace the hood, But when they went and they replaced the hood and kind of fixed some of it, they found that the frame was bent and they couldn't put the pieces back the way that it was. It's the same thing with the house. Is that we go up based on what we can initially see.
Yeah.
Once you peel back that layer and you find out that there's some serious damage underneath, those kind of things, as long as you're working with a reputable contractor like yourself, those kind of things, as long as we can get an estimate and kind of see some of that damage that you guys are seeing. We're not, the adjusters aren't contractors. They're not experts in that world. They're very good at kind of estimating and those kind of things, but it's impossible to be able to dig behind some walls and things like that. You know, you think about like a leak and somebody, if a pipe bursts, right? You can't see sometimes that damage that happens behind the wall. It's impossible until you rip out that wall.
That's right.
And so it's things like that you look for, and that's why it's important to make sure you use a good contractor when you're going through that knows that process and that can write up that detailed estimate and be sure to document and show what it is. And usually that's not an issue at all.
I mean, I would really, there's not much else to say. It's like you said, we see it all the time with just about every type of claim made. We see it. I mean, just for the example of a car. I mean, that example you said with the tire hit the hood. All it takes, because whatever shop is working on that vehicle is going to be in contact with that adjuster. All they have to do is take pictures, send supplemental documents, and say, hey, this is what we estimate that the damages are and what they'll cost to fix, and so on. And the adjuster will adjust the loss settlement from there. And it's a fairly simple process. Generally, it takes no effort from the insured or the client.
Usually the insurer's not even involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it happens all the time, and it's usually a pretty seamless process.
Yeah, and I also come across this almost every single claim that we assist with, and yes, the adjusters will, as long as you document the process, document every detail. So if you had rain come in your house, black mold will start to form within 10 days. You got to extract all the moisture, so you extract things like that. Not every time will an adjuster notice all of these damages right up front, like we've talked about, but as long as you have the correct photo documentation and enough evidence like that you can justify what you're asking for, then yes, insurance companies and adjusters are absolutely okay with coming back and covering those additional costs. Will they cover residual repairs should an issue become evident down the road after repair is complete but found to have stemmed from the original damage? I'll kind of lead on that. So what I've noticed, and from our company specifically, we try to document everything that there possibly can be there. So coming into, doing the residential remediations, if you've went through a windstorm or tornado. We had a tornado in Seneca a few months back, and it ripped a bunch of stuff up. Well, a good contractor that's going to be working with the insurance, they're going to, like I said, go through the entire process with a fine-tooth comb. They're going to check your foundations, they're going to check your walls, they're going to check little minor cracks in your drywall, because what that does is it leads us to believe that there may be another issue. If there's a cracked drywall from a twisted house, there could be framing involved, there could be foundation issues involved. So once from my experience and that I know of, once we've gone through and documented everything, and there's a settlement with the insurance company, that is a complete settlement, unless it's a major issue, which I can't attest to that, because typically we find the damages previous to actually having even an adjuster come out. So we try to present all evidence previous to the claim being filed to the homeowner, and then we turn that evidence and any documentation we have from there over to the insurance adjusters. And as things come up, like we just discussed, if we see anything more, we just document it. By the time the settlement is fully settled out, usually that pretty much ends that process. Is that right? Once the settlement's made, it would be hard to come back 6-8 months later.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because I think there's I guess the easy answer would be it's probably case by case basis.
That's right. Yeah.
But when a claim is settled, and there's a few things that have to happen. The client has to be happy with it,
Yep.
right? The adjuster is going to have to sign off that everything's been completed and so on. So that being said, if there are residual damages that occur after or post claim, however long, right, and everything's been certified that it's been completed, the loss has been paid out, and so on, you could almost, again, case by case, but you could almost run into an errors and omissions type thing when it comes to maybe the contractor that was doing the work.
Yeah.
Maybe they did something wrong, or they forgot to do something, or it just wasn't done correctly. Then it could very well come back on the contractor who did the work.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, it would really become the responsibility of the homeowner to reach out to the contractor at that point. The insurance carrier, can't really think of a situation that they would get involved in that. But John, if you have
Yeah, it would essentially fall back on the could fall back on the liability of the contractor.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about that, products completed operations,
Yeah.
which is what's going to guarantee your work.
Yeah.
So the example I always give for those situations is a plumber, right? Plumber installs a toilet, the toilet leaks and causes damage to the house, right? It may not happen that first month, it may happen 6 months down the road, and you find that, whoever installed the toilet, didn't put a valve on correctly or something like that. Then that goes back onto the plumber.
Yeah.
And so, usually what'll happen for us in those situations is that we'll file the claim, and then we'll go after the contractor that did the work.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important as a contractor too to make sure you got that products completed operations, so that it's covering your work. So if you do a roof, and let's say, and this wouldn't happen with you,
Yeah.
but something happened with the roof where you put a hole in. We had this happen at our house. We had somebody come to our roof, and they didn't put the siding part correct on there,
stop flashing.
the
Yep.
flashing,
Mm-hmm.
and it leaked into our room right there.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having to go after the roofer, who then and it just kind of it went down a path a little bit, but that product's completed operations came, they fixed it, patched everything up, and did all that sort of stuff. It was a minor fix, but it was one of those things that it doesn't happen right away. You're not going to notice it.
Yeah.
It took 6 months down the road for us to notice it.
Yeah.
So it's important to make sure, again, who you're working with has the right coverage, who you let come into your house to do that, so that way 6, 10, 12, 24 months down the road, if things happen. Another example, this is actually a real life example. We had a contractor build a deck. Built a deck, the neighbor had a big party. He built a deck in the winter. Neighbor had the party in the summer, had probably 20 or 30 people out on the deck, and the deck's collapsed. And a lot of people were injured. And so at State Farm, we went back against the contractor who built the roof, or the deck.
Yeah.
And ended up, everything worked out fine. Nobody was seriously injured or anything like that, but that product's completed operations got them to fix the deck, and also paid for the people that were injured, their hospital bills and those kind of things, and rather than the homeowner having to take on that burden.
So what I would recommend is, if you have a large loss where you have multiple trades involved, to kind of cover what we just kind of discussed here, is that it could be beneficial to work with one contractor. That way they can document everything, and there's somebody to fall back on. So in this question specifically, like, if you have multiple contractors doing the work, then it can get lost. So if you have a problem later on, whose fault is it? Is it the roofer's fault? Is it the fact that they didn't catch the framing was twisted during the wind or storm or whatever, and maybe those, so
they're all going to blame each other too.
It could happen that way. So I would advise somebody to use one contractor to kind of remediate an entire project if that was to come up, rather than trying to act as a general contractor yourself and talking to 5 or 6 different people. Will the contractor return to make additional repairs related to the original damages? So I just kind of covered that as well. In our case, if there was any kind of issues from the original damage, we're going to try to find that before we actually do all of the work. We're going to, in the process at the same time, we're going to be looking for anything that could be affected, and we're proactive about making sure that we don't have to come back. But if there was an issue and we had to come back, then yes, we would come back immediately.